I did not think that I was going to review this movie. I rarely review movies. But it was one of my main spirit guides, Lilith, who I channel often, daily, a full part of my essence, who said, "Yeah, you need to go to this movie." And I went, "Really, Lilith? Barbie? For real?" All my friends told me it was horrible. Why waste my time? And then we were going to go see Elemental. Welcome. Thanks for being live with me on a early Tuesday morning, bright and early. For those of you who saw my Instagram review, this will be 10 times that. I have a little brief Instagram review that doesn't cover half of what I want to cover today as I sit more deeply. Sorry, I had to have a big old cough there. I wanted to have you listen to this. This is there are two reasons why you should watch this movie. Even though it's going to be painful for an hour and a half. Very painful. In your face with misogyny and misandry. They hate women. They hate men. The whole women hate men, then men hate women, and then who the hell is Aaralyn? What about all the Barbies that were not assigned to any particular role that fits in, like Weird Barbie? They had these unique roles that we'll talk about in a minute. But here is why. If there are two reasons why you should really watch this movie, and here's the first one. Listen up. I've got all my sound equipment so you can hear this.
It's really impossible to be a woman. You are so beautiful and so smart, and it kills me that you don't think you're good enough. Like, we have to always be extraordinary. But somehow we're always doing it wrong. You have to be thin, but not too thin. And you can never say you want to be thin. You have to say you want to be healthy, but also you have to be thin. You have to have money, but you can't ask for money because that's crass. You have to be a boss, but you can't be mean. You have to lead, but you can't squash other people's ideas. You're supposed to love being a mother, but don't talk about your kids all the damn time. You have to be a career woman, but also always be looking out for other people. You have to answer for men's bad behavior, which is insane, but if you point that out, you're accused of complaining. You're supposed to stay pretty for men, but not so pretty that you tempt them too much or that you threaten other women, because you're supposed to be a part of the sisterhood, but always stand out and always be grateful. But never forget that the system is rigged, so find a way to acknowledge that, but also always be grateful. You have to never get old. Never be rude, never show off, never be selfish, never fall down, never fail, never show fear, never get out of line. It's too hard, it's too contradictory, and nobody gives you a medal or says thank you. And it turns out, in fact, that not only are you doing everything wrong, but also everything is your fault. I'm just so tired of watching myself and every single other woman tie herself into knots so that people will like us. And if all of that is also true for a doll, just representing a woman, then I don't even know.
Yeah. What do you think? Right? This is the first reason why you should watch this movie, because of that truth right there. The glorious speech, as represented by America Ferrara. Incredible. She was incredible. I feel some people say that Ryan Gosling carried the movie, but I highly disagree. I feel like America Ferrara carried the movie. That is the first reason why you should watch this movie, because the gender roles were bent all over the place in a way that, and I don't mean gender roles when you think of LGBTQ, I think of the obvious, blatant, in your face misogyny and misandry. When you have so much misogyny and misandry, it's they don't like women and then they do, and then they don't like men and then they do. And you had roles. I'm not sure who played Weird Barbie, but I feel like she carried that role of the typical person. She played the role of the Barbie who was played with too much, and she was always in the splits, and her hair was always ragged, but she also had this beautiful artistic side of her. Like, her home was unique. It looked like Picasso built her Barbie home, and all the other houses were pink, and all the other Barbies initially made fun of her, and then they end up apologizing to her in the end, saying, "And we're sorry that we called you Weird Barbie, both behind your back and to your face." And she helps all the other Barbies who are too busy playing the role of Barbie and being perfect. And she helps the Kens as well. So that was all really unique. And that speech by America Ferrera blew my mind. So, yeah, Kate McKinnon, is that who it was? Okay. Yeah, and to think about the spell that we're all under. They had to use this particular speech to get out of feeling disempowered. I feel like Alan's role was underplayed. For those of you who watch Alan, they come across and they're like, here's all the Barbies and here's all the Kens, and they're all saying hello to each other. Hello, Barbie. Hello, Ken. Hello, other Barbie. Hello, other Ken. And all that stuff is going on. But then there's this one guy who has on clothes that they look like Ken's clothes, but they kind of don't look good on him, and they're a little loose, and he's a little bit masculine, but a lot feminine, and he's like, "And I'm Alan." They're like, "Yeah, that is just Alan. He doesn't have any other duplications. It's just Alan." And he goes, "Yeah, I'm confused about that." And Alan, who's understated, who wants to get out of Barbie land, obviously sees through them all, can't stand it, but doesn't fit in anywhere. I found his role to be really interesting and worth paying attention to. For obvious reasons of the person who refuses to fit into the roles of masculine and feminine are completely ignored, underrated, undermined, kind of just, "Oh yeah, hey, Alan, you nobody." They treated him a little bit like that because he couldn't find his role and couldn't find his place. So, what else do I have to say about that? The Billie Eilish song. Now, this is a huge spoiler. I watched this movie for an hour and a half going, why are you putting all this in our face about misogyny and misandry, and then you're not really going to resolve it very well? And then they started to resolve it in ways that really helped out and balanced things out, but not fully, because that's not the reality of the world. The reality of the world is that it isn't balanced out. These roles aren't balanced, so they couldn't balance it because that wouldn't have been realistic. I was proud of Mattel in a sense, but secretly disappointed because, as a movie watcher, you want to see things resolved to where everyone's happy and content, and they just didn't do that. And I thought, really? Barbie and Ken are going to leave the real world. Ken is going to return and make all the Barbies fall under a spell of, and he's going to turn into this, misogynist who plays the patriarchal role of disempowering women, come back to Barbie Land and make all the women seem like they're just small and his slaves. And that was, quite frankly, overly sexualized. I didn't like that part of it. And I just went, whoa, really? But that's what's happening in the world, right? But then there were all these other themes of how Ken feels being under Barbie's foot all the time. And it's Barbie and Ken, as if Ken doesn't particularly feel like he has a role on his own. So he has to turn that around. See, this has been happening since Atlantis and Lemuria. Since these divine masculine and divine feminine roles have been in existence, this whole theme of fighting in power and not living equally, has been around. So it kind of shows why misogyny exists and where that comes from. Because if you think that only the patriarchy can make you feel absolutely horrible, think again, as displayed by this movie. Think again, right? So if you think that the feminine side of all people is attacked the most, think again. And they show that. They show Ken in his deep existential crisis and depression about being under Barbie's foot all the time. And all the women hold all the roles. And kind of is the opposite in today's real world, right? But there have been other worlds in Atlantis and Lemuria. If you have a really deep love for the Isis cult back in ancient Egypt and you feel like so deeply attached to the divine feminine, do you have roles to work out where you were the one in power and with all the men under your foot, stamping down all the divine masculine? It's something to think about. And this was really portrayed well in this movie where Ken went through an existential crisis where they start out the whole movie with Barbie. Barbie is the head of the Supreme Court, and Barbie is also all the doctors, and Barbie is all the attorneys, and Barbie is all of the authority roles. And they're like, this is Barbie. She's happy every day. She wakes up and has the perfect life. This is Barbie. Her feet are never flat. This is Barbie. Everything's perfect. She doesn't have cellulite, all these things. Barbie wakes up and all of her clothes fit. And this is Ken. He only has a good day when Barbie looks at her. That's what they said. And Barbie is like looking at all these other Kens. And then finally he looks at, the blonde Ken played by Ryan Gosling. She looks at him and she says, oh, hi, Ken. And he's like, oh, hi, Barbie. And he just swoons as if everything that he is depends upon her opinion. So we lived in days like this in ancient Atlantis and Lemuria. We lived in times like this where the divine feminine was ultimately in control. And that's hard for you to perceive now because we're in opposite times, right? So, and it showed Ken's whole existential crisis and how he got to the point where he ended up in the real world, saw the patriarchy. And he came back and he said, oh, this is patriarchy. You're going to love it. And he told all the other Kens and empowered them to get out from under Barbie's foot and all the Barbie's feet of controlling them in the Barbie world. Okay. Got some allergies going on this morning. Whew. And I had hoped that they would at least talk about superiority just going away and everybody just kind of getting along. But that's not the nature of where the world is right now. So when Ken came back to the Barbie world after experiencing patriarchy and loving it and attempting to make all the Kens patriarchal, Barbies did eventually get out they were under this spell in the movie of Ken. And it was all like, bring me a beer. And they showed the bad side of patriarchy as well. Bring me a beer. And here's my super sports everything. And this is, this is not the Barbie house anymore. This is Ken's, bachelor pad. And all the women are, I'm not going to have a commitment with you, Barbie. You are, what did they call her? He said, you are my super casual, non-committal, whatever. Yeah, that's what he said to her. And you could feel that because he would look at her longingly as if he would be happy, but he has to keep her at a distance because she has made him feel so unwanted. So they show the actual feminine responsibility in the patriarchal control and how it got that way. And I, for one, was super surprised at Mattel. I was happy that they didn't end the movie with Barbie and Ken being together and falling in love with each other. Unhappy that Alan didn't get more of a role, but they were trying to tell us something there too, that people who refuse those roles actually are looked down upon and ignored, as Alan was in his role in this movie. I was happy that they gave weird Barbie, who had been so abused by society and the roles, but she also was very empowered and happy about being weird. She wasn't super depressed. Weird Barbie was very happy. And I was so happy that she was the one to help people understand what the roles were doing and how neither the Barbies nor the Kens should be under the spell of patriarchy or matriarchy, misogyny or misandry, how none of it was helpful, and how we just keep going back and forth to all of that, right? So I was really surprised that Mattel would be behind this and would bring out a movie, that they would make this movie in this way to show so much of the truth. I also saw a lot of bad reviews for this movie, but and I felt that way too until the last 25, 30 minutes. And I wanted to, they don't have a scene out there. I'm not going to be able to put up any ads. I wasn't caring anyway if we did or not, but I want to show you this song. Billie Eilish made a song, and I don't know if she made it just for this movie or if they took it, but it was incredible. It's called What Was I Made For? And at the very end of the movie, Barbie, I'm going to completely spoil it for you. This is when things really got good, is when Barbie came back to the Barbie house from the real world, and Ken had changed everything into a disaster. And then they had to balance things out to bring equality of men for as much as they actually could. We'll talk about that in a minute. To put men in some more powerful positions. It was just sort of showing you where the world was in its opposite, because it was mirroring the world in an opposing way. Because in the real world, we have men kind of understanding balance now and wanting women in power, but not too much power, because they're afraid that women are going to take over, probably like they did in Atlantis and Lemuria and in the ISIS cults. But I regress. If you think that hasn't happened before, that women haven't been in power completely ever on this planet and then squashed the divine masculine, no, think again. We've gone through this cycle millions of times, if not billions, of no, the feminine need the power, no, the masculine need the power, and each have been equally responsible for the pain that you're seeing in this world. And Mattel brought that to light, and that really shocked me. So once Ken got back to the Barbie house from the real world and completely changed it to a misogynistic, patriarchal load of crap, Barbie then returns. Weird Barbie actually helps the main character of the show, who's deeply into the roles. I forgot what they called the main Barbie, the blonde Barbie. I think they called her stereotypical Barbie. So Weird Barbie helps stereotypical Barbie and all the other Barbies get out from under the spell of patriarchy. But then they don't, even though they get back into their roles of authority, they put the Kens in power, but in lower roles of power, which is a mirror of what's happening in the world today, of how men are actually wanting women to be a little bit more equal, but not to the extent that they take over. So they're putting women in the divine masculine is putting the divine feminine in smaller roles of power as represented by the movie. So they're showing you how we want to recover, but men are still afraid of women being in control, and that they might have some decent reasons. And they also deeply showed the struggle between mother and daughter, and a mother just attempting to be a wonderful mother and dealing with this really kind of this teenager going through the typical teenager existential crisis based upon her disenchantment with a patriarchal world. And it was very interesting to me that this balance never completes, and then simultaneously, despite that, what do they call her? The blonde Barbie. I don't have these words in my vocabulary, so it took me all morning to be able to think about how I wanted to talk to you, but these dualistic words just baffle me. What's the word? Stereotypical Barbie. Stereotypical Barbie at the end has a huge existential crisis over the fact that she's not pretty anymore. She's starting to get cellulite. She's starting to be a real world Barbie. And then she goes to the real world and they can't stand her. And they're like, we don't like anything that you represent. And she's like, but that was never my original intention. My intention was to make you powerful. Yeah. So she was shunned by the real world and had to go through her own spiritual awakening. So at the very end of the movie, you find out that Barbie's run-in with Mattel's grandmother, the CEO of Mattel is played by Will Ferrell. His grandmother is off in this little room having tea. And when Barbie's trying to get out and go back to Barbie world to save it, she runs into that particular character and that particular actress who did a phenomenal job. And she starts asking the real questions like, why am I here? What was I made for? And then at the very end, you see this character again. And this character, she asked the question again, what was I made for? Why am I here? These are the questions that we're all asking amidst all these roles. And that's just incredibly relevant that they're asking this question, because this is the question that elevates the soul. This is the question, no matter if you're male or female or in between. If you don't identify in these roles at all, you might have a positive, powerful reason for no longer identifying, because the roles have caused war for millions of years, right? So, sorry for the allergies. When she's asking that question at the end of the movie, we find out that the CEO of Mattel, that his late grandmother is actually her spirit that's been there talking to Barbie, and that's who Barbie met. And she comes back again and she's like, I am in spirit. And she identifies herself in the movie. I love that. I love that the ghost of the original Barbie creator comes through. And she says, you surprised me, Barbie. You surprised me because you want to feel. And she said, I'm not going to send you back to the real world. I can't do that. I can't make those decisions for you, but I'm going to show you, the truth of what it's like. And the ghost holds hands with Barbie. And they place their hands together like that. And she gives her all these visions of what it's like to hold a baby, and laughter and kids crying, and the beauty of pain, and all the darkness that we experience, and all the joy and all the bliss. And there was like this it looked like a near-death experience moment. Right. And she showed her all of everything that it's like to be human, not just male or female, but to be human and to feel. And the tears start rolling down Barbie's face. And you could feel her heart beating, and you could feel this beautiful moment before she becomes human, that she actually awakens by feeling. So this was the song that accompanied that. Is absolutely beautiful. Have you heard it? It's Billie Eilish, What Was I Made For?
I used to float, now I just fall down. I used to know, but I'm not sure now what I was made for.
And this encapsulates the whole movie.
What was I made
It just brings it to a beautiful completion.
Taking a drive, I was an ideal, looked so alive. Turns out I'm not real.
Yeah, I was an ideal. I thought I was alive, but turns out I'm not real. Right? So she feels that as Barbie until the very end, when she awakens and then finally feels her own heart and the power of having human emotions. And that's how it closed out.
Just something you paid for.
Turns out I'm not real. I was just something you paid for.
What was I made
That's kind of discussing how most women feel in the world. And no, I wasn't picking up on a lot of Cabal influence in terms of, if it was deep Cabal influence, they would be making Barbie look like an entire, slut and the whole movie, and they weren't. They would be making her look like a bimbo the whole movie. That would be more of the theme. And then at the very end, you're going to see where you are if you would like to, there's a really beautiful Buddhist saying where the person's, I think the saying is, if you are a Buddhist, you see only Buddhist. If you are a pig, you see other pigs. If you are a flower, you see other flowers. You see where I'm going with that? It's really going to show you what you see. And if you are deeply influenced and hurt by misogyny, then you're going to think, oh, this is too much Cabal influence, that's negative. But if you are deeply imbalanced and you want to understand your purpose for being here, you will see that and feel that deeply. So I did not feel this representation of the Cabal attempting to influence because I am out of the influence of Cabal. Do you see where we're going with that? I did not feel deep state attempting to influence because I'm out of that influence. But if you are in the influence and deeply disturbed by it, that's what you will see. So this movie was an incredible example of showing you where you're at.
I don't know how to feel, but I want to try.
Don't know how to feel, but I want to try.
I don't know how to feel, but someday I might. Someday I might.
Beautiful closure to the movie.
When did it end? All the enjoyment. I'm sad again. Don't tell my boyfriend it's not what he's made for.
Yeah, I'm sad again, but don't tell my boyfriend it's not what he's made for. That was an interesting thing because Ryan Gosling really represented how terrible it could possibly feel as well to be under the foot of everyone looking at his beautiful girlfriend all the time. We don't stop to think about how men might feel, how the divine masculine might feel in that scenario. We're only thinking about what we're experiencing and everything. So that was interesting. My boyfriend's not made to handle my emotions. He's only made to have me as an object, is what they're trying to say there. Which is really 1950s theme, right? We're beyond that now, and I feel like Mattel pulled out of that really strongly, but it did bring you through the centuries of lack balance between feminine and masculine, showing you the different roles of power and disempowerment.
What was I made for?
And asking that question, what was I made for? Like, we should all be asking that question. What was I made for? Why am I here? Why did Creator make me? I love that they ended with that.
'Cause I don't know how to feel.
I don't know how to feel. That the whole theme was she wasn't really feeling. Stereotypical Barbie in the movie wasn't really feeling the entire time. She had moments of feeling and moments of awakening, and then the end, she completely felt her heart for the first time before deciding to be human.
I wanna try. I don't know how to feel, but someday I might. Someday
Those are beautiful lines.
Something I'm made for. Something I'm made for.
Something I'm made for, being happy. Beautiful ending to the movie, and they ended it right there. Oh my goodness. Absolutely incredible, but I'm sure that the viewers didn't know how to feel either. Speaking of Billie Eilish saying, I don't know how to feel. And then she gives that sense of wonder, but someday I might. Someday I might, learn how to feel happy, which is something I'm made for. And they end it there. And Barbie becomes human while crying and feeling her heartbeat and having a huge spiritual awakening with all of these. It looked like kind of like what you would see in a near-death experience. With all the flashing of life and beauty and babies and animals and life moments and birthdays and all of the things. It wasn't an ending that I was expecting after like having all of this thrown in my face from thousands of years. And it was so directly in your face. It wasn't subtle, these themes of anti-women, anti-men, and anti-weird person and anti-possibly gay person. There was some themes of Alan being represented as you would think that he might be like the intersex person who's experiencing his moments by not identifying with either gender, and not really wanting to talk about it and knowing that he's deeply out of place. So it covered that theme as well. It didn't just cover men and women and feminine and masculine, but all of the themes that don't fit into just feminine or just masculine, but how so many people feel left out in these painful roles that both divine feminine and divine masculine have held for thousands of years on this planet. And then Barbie wakes up at the end, and I am like crying and, I was really grateful during some of the movie. My little daughter got bored and she got up and went to the bathroom and went back to the snack stand and did some things because I was like, I don't really want her to see this over sexualization of Barbie. But then she came back and then she got to see the ending of everything and a little bit more balance. Not as much as I would have liked. But I was happy that Mattel didn't fall into the trap of giving us the quintessential movie of the happy ending where Barbie marries Ken and Ken is, oh yes, Barbie, I'm only made for you. Or Barbie's like, oh yes, Ken, let's get married and have little Barbies. None of that happened. None of that happened. They found their individuality. But it wasn't the perfect ending of having a world where Ken is back in power or Ken and Barbie are balanced in power. But there was one scene that was particularly beautiful where the Kens were dancing, and they were dancing on this dance floor where it was part blue and part pink. I think representing the masculine, the feminine. But when the light, like if you imagine the blue flashy disco dance floor, there was such an 80s theme on the left, and then on the right represented the feminine pink color. When the light would flash between the two colors, it would light up purple, very violet, not even a purple. It was a violet. Now that was definitely something that they're trying to tell you there about the middle way consciousness. So I was surprised to see that in a movie. And the song was long. It wasn't a little flash of the Kens dancing. It was a fairly long song with them dancing and the floor turning from just pink and just blue, but pink and blue at the same time, turning violet, representing the middle way consciousness. That made me happy. So you will see in this movie a mirrored image of exactly where you are. If it's painful to you and you can't watch it, that's where you are. If you're too afraid of the masculine being in trouble and the Cabal and the Illuminati and all these scary things, that's where you are, and it will show you that. If you long for equality and you're having an existential crisis about not knowing where you fit into anything, if you are weird Barbie, I loved her. She was my favorite Barbie. I know you're not supposed to have favorites, but I did. I completely favored Weird Barbie. You know, she was super spiritual and her house looked like Picasso, and she was always in the splits, and she always had on colorful but raggedy clothing and not trying to fit in. And her hair was like 4 different colors and never quite done well, like never, well, you know what I mean? Never done well in light of comparison to the other stereotypical Barbie, at least. Um, and yeah, it even has stereotypical Barbie and all the other Barbies that were in power go back to the weird Barbie, and the weird Barbie ends up saving the whole movie, which was interesting. That was interesting that Mattel actually allowed that to happen. Again, I wanted more of a role with Alan. I mean, that just could be me and where I'm at. Again, you will see where you're at. But I wanted Alan to kind of have a more of a role of empowerment, but that's not where Alan is right now. So they were just kind of giving you a reflection of where the world could be, where it was in the 1950s, and all the middle ground that we've covered in the middle way consciousness. And if you see that because you are a proponent of the new pioneered, the brand new middle way consciousness, then you will see that. And Barbie having spiritual mentor, absolutely. Barbie being mentored by creator of Barbie. Who played that? Was that what was it? Ruth. Oh my gosh, who played that role? Who was the actor in that? She was incredible. She didn't try to tell Barbie what she was made for, even though she was the creator. So that was, in my opinion, a representation of how Cosmic Creator feels towards us when Barbie says, well, what did you make me? What was I made for? I have to get your permission to become human? And the actress who played the spiritual mentor and the ghost of the original Mattel creator of Barbie, the grandmother, she said, yes, I created you, but I can't tell you what you're created for. Only you can tell you that. I found that was beautiful. No, I can't give you permission to be human. And Barbie, you surprised me, right? We surprise creator all the time. So beautiful. It was so beautiful. And then when my kids and I got in the car on the way home, we had a little moment together, and one of them wanted a soda or something, and we stopped and we kind of sat in the car, and my 19-year-old son on the spectrum, he was like, whoa, Mom, I didn't expect this movie really surprised me. I thought it was going to be terrible. He's like, I'm going to give this, what are you going to give it? I said, I'm going to give it a solid 7. I'm going to give this a solid 7 out of 10, whereas prior to everything I've just explained to you, which only happened, by the way, in the last 30 minutes of the movie, all the good parts. You have to bear with it. Grin and bear it until then. I guess like women did in the 50s. Terrible. But you just kind of get through all the roles, and then you know that eventually there's going to be some balance, and there was. They balanced things out in a very truthful way in the end. And then Barbie has her full existential crisis. Ken does as well. And then they show Ken at the end of the show wearing this t-shirt that says, I am enough, except it puts a K in front of enough. I am Ken-enough. And I loved it. It's like he had identified himself and was loving himself, and he felt enough finally. Not for Barbie, but for himself. Like Ken and Barbie don't end up married or anything like that. So yeah. So my kids and I were talking on the way home, and they were like, wow, I mean, it really touched me. It really, my 19-year-old son was like, I think I almost cried, but, I held it back, but I think I almost cried at the end. I saw, and it was really amazing. And then those last 30 minutes of how Mattel pulled it all together, you got to stay for that. That was in a deep awakening moment. Yeah. Comments, questions before we close? Open to it for just a few minutes, and then I have to head off. I have to head off for my day. Let's see here in chat. Are the gender roles all about depending on the other gender to supply their respective first 3 chakra energies? That's a really good take on it. I like that because if you think about the true nature of the root chakra as representing just being in your primitive survival concepts of everything, your first floor consciousness. If you consider consciousness and your chakras like an elevator, um, this movie doesn't get all the way to the top, but it brings you all the way up to the heart chakra. You get on that elevator and you slowly ride through all the pain of just surviving in the root chakra and then going into the roles of gender and the sacral chakra, and then the roles of power and the solar plexus, and all the fighting and all the disempowerment. And then finally letting go and asking that question, why am I here? What was I made for, creator? And you get that feeling at the end, like Barbie's talking to God, the Mattel creator, and God is a woman, right? Which is very interesting. She had this really sweet grandmotherly energy, the old crone energy coming in, and you right up into that heart consciousness, and Barbie has her very first awakening. Yeah. So I like how you saw that in it, and you will see exactly where you are, and it's showing you where the world is as well. By not ending the movie perfectly with men in power or women in power, it's like it was okay. We brought people in a little bit. We brought each other in a little bit into power, but not all the way, which is just realistic. Yeah. Yeah. So if you're going to go see it before it gets out of the theaters. It is worth it. I give it a solid 7. Um, I didn't think that I would. I didn't think it would be enough for me to even make a review on. I typically don't review movies, but this is one you might want to go check out and just bear with it until the end, because those final 30 minutes will floor you. Like my children and I were sitting there like, what? Well, no way. I can't believe Mattel did this. Wow. I was crying. You know me. I was like, oh my God, the Billie Eilish song. Impasse, you're going to cry multiple times. No, I did. Oh man. Uh, and it's just so interesting. It was such a mirror, kind of an opposing mirror. It was a mirror view. It wasn't a direct view, but you know what I mean by mirror view? Creators, you're going to know what I mean on influencers. When everything mirrors your screen to be opposite, it's the same thing, but simultaneously opposite. Interesting. All right. And again, you're going to see exactly where you are in your spiritual awakening. If you are really heavily influenced and terrified of Cabal energy, you're going to see that. If you want to see balance and want to see the middle way, that's what I saw. And you're going to see that because that's where you are. If you want to see themes of disempowerment with men towards women or women towards men, you're going to see that because that's where you are. But Mattel pulled it around into a beautiful theme at the end. What was I made for? The question we should all be asking our own soul. I'll see you next time. Please like and subscribe if you like this content. It helps me grow the channel and gives a lot of helpfulness to everything. When we have more subscribers and we can reach more people, it's super helpful to be able to continue this free content. So thank you for coming with me live today so early in the morning. See you soon. Bye.